Hey, Austin. Welcome back to Changing Austin. I am excited for our next guest, Davon, and I am going to let him introduce himself to you because we have an exciting conversation for you today. Welcome, Davon.
Thank you so much, Stacy.
So tell me what you're famous for here in Austin.
Well, I happen to serve as new president and CEO for the Downtown Austin Alliance. I've been on the job about we'll say 90 days now. And this community has really just opened its arms to me, and I cannot be thrilled enough to be here.
Outstanding. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So we're getting you at the 90-day mark. I have started new jobs before, and 90 days was about the time where I felt like I began to have a handle on what might be great and what might need some improvement. And usually how I like to start these episodes is to ask sort of, in your time in Austin, what is the thing that you think has been the most enduring and important change that we've had? But I'm going to adapt that a little bit for you. So you're new to Austin. So coming to Austin, what is the most unique thing about our city that you've noticed that you feel like is different from other cities?
I'm going to say the people and the hospitality. I've had the privilege of working in a number of cities all across the country, large cities, small cities, but, unequivocally, everyone has been so friendly. I mean, it's authentic, it's genuine. Everyone wants the next person to succeed. And I think that's really good when I think about my role, the role of our organization, and how we can continue to better the community. So, I'm looking forward to latching on that, riding that wave, and I hope to pay it forward as well.
That's exciting. Well, I would tell you, when I encounter the Downtown Austin Alliance folks when I'm in downtown, and I see the carts that have the branding on them, hospitality is actually the first word that comes to mind for me because it feels like there's such a "we're glad you're here" ethos about the folks that I encounter. So that I'm excited that that's what you're feeling too.
Thank you. Yeah, in fact, I would say our ambassadors are probably our best a promotional asset. Everywhere I go, people say, "Oh, I know the Downtown Austin Alliance. I talk to your ambassadors, your clean team every single day. They stop me. They're friendly. They're waving at us. So they're our best spokespeople. I can't say enough about them."
Outstanding. Well, so tell me a little bit about, so you're new to Austin. Tell us a little bit about your path to get here. What have you done before you came to this role?
Sure. My background has been community and economic development. I went to school. I studied sociology and French. And so I always thought that I would be a sociology professor. That was my dream, to be an academic. But my world was turned upside down. It was, in fact, during college in one of my sociological theory classes, we watched a documentary, Michael Moore's Roger and Me. If you know Michael Moore, he grew up in Flint, Michigan. And so this documentary tells the story of Flint, Michigan, how there was great quality of life, and then all of a sudden industry left the town, and that's when all kinds of negative socioeconomic conditions grew out of control. Everything from property abandonment, domestic violence, and a host of other issues. And so for me, having grown up in Baltimore, it resonated with me. Baltimore is a very working class city with a lot of individuals working at, Bethlehem Steel and Domino Sugar. As there were changes in the economy, we didn't quite keep up. And so a light bulb went off. Little did I know, one of my classmates, her father was a key executive at a major real estate company that had a substantial presence in community development and real estate. And so the next day, I received a phone call saying, "Hey, heard about you. We'd love to talk to you." And so that really began my trajectory in terms of real estate community planning. And so I've had the fortune of working for nonprofits, for development companies, for city government, county government, business improvement districts. And so I love what I do. It's a fascinating space. 1 hour I get to address homelessness. The next hour I'm assisting a business, get opened. The next hour I'm figuring out how to tell a story to get customers to come into a community. So it's really a fascinating line of work.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to come back to French and sociology later because that sounds fascinating. In the meantime, though, let's drive on the community development side. So I realize you're only 90 days in, but as you think about what you see, what you've learned from the other cities that you've been in, so you've been in Los Angeles, you've been in New Orleans and Baltimore and others. What have you learned from that experience that you think could be beneficial to Austin?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's important to sometimes when we're in a community, we're involved in some of those problems, it seems insurmountable. But I think it's important to understand that many of the challenges that we do face are shared by our counterparts around the country. There are, however, unique experiences as well, and I think that's where really we have the opportunity to customize our programs, customize our solutions. And so certainly, having worked in other communities, I've learned the importance of bringing people to the table as a part of the growth. Austin has been the envy of many communities, I would say. There's been such phenomenal growth that's taken place, the amount of development, the population growth that's occurred. sometimes with growth, it can be scary. Sometimes people feel left behind. And as I've been out, meeting with various stakeholders, I've heard concerns about, Davon, what's Downtown Austin Alliance going to do to preserve culture? How do we ensure that our artists can still afford space in downtown? How can we ensure that, that small business can be here despite rising property values? And I completely understand. And I think that's why our work is so important. What happens in a community isn't by happenstance. It's sound policies, programs that really guides the development of a community. And so certainly looking back, I think we're going to use this opportunity to make sure that we're bringing people along for this ride, because the ride thus far has been fast and fury. But again, great for economically for the region, but let's make sure we bring everyone along.
Absolutely. That's such a difficult and delicate balance because, I came to Austin 25 years ago. I came here thinking I was coming to a sleepy college town going to UT and that I was going to go off to New York or LA or Chicago or some other glamorous city. And then I fell in love with Austin and I've been here ever since. And so I work hard to not be one of those curmudgeon-y Austinites. This is back in my day. It was cheaper and it was more accessible and the parking was better and the traffic was better and whatnot. That I want to have the problems of a growing city.
Absolutely.
So there's still problems. There's still problems to be managed, but they're better problems than, as you described, Flint. Yeah, the problems of a declining city are different problems, and you have a lot less wherewithal to be able to deal with them. If you had to choose one, so as you think of it, you mentioned people feeling sort of overwhelmed. I'm encountering that a lot lately, where people sort of feel like there's challenge in every realm. If you had to choose one area where you think, ooh, this is really a big opportunity for Austin, is there anything that you're gravitating towards so far?
I would say reducing homelessness in our community. Again, when I talk about challenges facing other communities, this is an issue that's not unique to Austin. Whether it's Baltimore, New Orleans, Los Angeles, New York, we're going to find these conditions. What I do believe, however, is that if there's the political and community will to change the situation, we can accomplish it. This is something that's really, near and dear to my heart. When I think about our fellow citizens, a lot of times there's this knee-jerk reaction to sort of criminalize homelessness or think that someone can just get up and find a house and find a job. Homelessness is far more complicated than that. Sometimes there are mental health challenges. Sometimes it's just simply someone falling onto hard situation just out of no fault of their own. In fact, I remember in interviewing for this job, I happened to be taking an Uber ride and I had a fascinating conversation with the driver. And we get to the end of the ride, and that's when he had disclosed that, he and his wife were homeless and living in a shelter. Would have had no idea had he does not disclose that story to me. But he shared a simple story about how he had assisted someone and fell onto hard financial times. And sometimes if we just take a step back and apply a little bit of empathy to the situation, think about what that person might be going through, how they may have ended up in that situation, I think it's an opportunity for us to assist them. So it's really important in terms of downtown recovery. I'm fully cognizant. Again, I talked about everyone feeling like they're benefiting from this progress. I think about, the Austinite who grew up here, who had dreams of owning a business on Congress Avenue, and their customers should be able to get to them. That small business owner may have taken out a second mortgage, may have, just taken out lots of loans just to fulfill that dream. And so it's our obligation to provide the runway for that business owner to take off. I want to ensure that their customers feel safe, that their customers can get to them, that they're, again, thriving from this economy, from the visitors who are visiting the convention center, who are here taking advantage of all the attractions. Let's provide that runway. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge homelessness in our community. We cannot deny it. It will require all hands on deck, but it's certainly a top priority for me.
Absolutely. It is one of the most common topics that comes up for me in recent years. And it feels to me like our biggest opportunity is a strategic and coordinated response to be able to help all along the spectrum. And I'm an optimist. It feels to me like we have the wherewithal, we have the want, and we have the people. We just have to kind of bring it all together in an effective way. That's exciting that you bring that same energy and empathy to that conversation.
Well, it's important. Again, there are a lot of people, organizations doing hard work. We've recently partnered with the City of Austin's Office of Homeless Strategy and Services to provide funding for additional outreach within downtown. This week, over the past 2 weeks, I've had the opportunity to visit different sites, community village, which was absolutely incredible to see the micro housing that's there. So there are a lot of people in this community doing really good work, and so all of us really need to just wrap our arms around one another to get it done.
Absolutely. So it's funny you mentioned community first. We actually last week Amplify had our leadership team meeting, and we actually had the opportunity to have it on site. They have an area there where they welcome folks, and we got to do what they call a group serve for their neighbors. And what was most exciting about it was two things. One is the neighbors were very happy to see us there. We realized how much we had in common with the neighbors. In fact, we discovered that one of the neighbors actually banks with Amplify Credit Union. And so we had a whole conversation about how do you get to the branch and how do we serve you and how can we help you? And it was really helpful the next day. We were about to go back into kind of our business meetings at our headquarters, and we started with, what was that experience like for you? And almost everybody said, it was interesting. I didn't know this about homelessness, whatever it was that they said. And it seems to me that if we can grow that understanding, our opportunity to grow the solutions that would help everybody in the process is really beneficial.
At 1,000%.
Awesome. Okay. So shifting gears, you mentioned small business. I long to stroll down a Congress Avenue where I can stroll in and out of a coffee shop and I can look at this boutique and I can do all of these different things. But we have some needs to be able to make that true. Do you have thoughts on how we can support that?
I do, and I love that you love retail and that you love to shop and you want to stroll Congress Avenue. I too love retail as well. It's something that's near and dear to me, urban retail. I just love the therapy that it provides, but also just the experience as well. And so this is also a top issue for the Downtown Austin Alliance. We've been spending a lot of time around this. Certainly, after the pandemic, there was a lot of vacancy that arose in communities all across the country. We've seized that opportunity working with existing property owners, working with Austinites to bring them into downtown. One of our signature programs is called DASA, Downtown Activation Space Austin. And so essentially what we've done is we've approached a property owner and said, hey, you've got this vacant space. Is there an opportunity for us to partner with you to develop pop-up activities, to have temporary art galleries? The program has been an absolute success. It's brought in lots of visitors into downtown, generating foot traffic, the foot traffic that we need to support additional retail. Retail follows rooftops. We've had great residential growth in downtown, so generating that foot traffic to support the restaurants, the dining, the entertainment along Congress Avenue. So that's one aspect. We're also involved from a design standpoint as well, working along the city's planning department. There's an initiative called CAUDI, Congress Avenue Urban Design Initiative, CAUDI. And so again, it's looking at the physical appearance of Congress Avenue. How do we make this an attractive retail destination? Everything from accommodating, parking, delivery, landscaping, ample pedestrian modes. That's a great shopping experience. And so it's, making sure that we offer this competitive environment is really important.
I am thrilled to hear that. And it's funny you mentioned that using vacant space as art galleries. I was in a conversation 2 days ago with a friend of mine who is an artist herself and connected to others. And she said, you know what we need to do? We have these spaces downtown. We should be using them for temporary art galleries. So now I just learned something that I can share with her, that we are and we can.
We are. We're going to continue that. And you're seeing this movement all across, again, the country as well. But we're really proud of our DASA program, Downtown Austin Space Activation. Really, really important program. And so stay tuned because we're going to be ramping it up more as well. We've had a number of property owners that love the success of the program that have reached out to us to say, hey, we want to partner with you as well. We're about to ramp up engagement as well with brokers as well. Again, to say, hey, let's work with you to close that deal, to get that tenant into downtown. We want to identify the local entrepreneurs here in Austin, that have dreams of being in downtown, bringing them, introducing them to a new market. So we're all in.
So economic development, good to grow the whole pie of prosperity in the city, jobs in the city, things along those lines. And you've mentioned the success that Austin has had. And some folks in Austin now sort of bristle at that word economic development. Essentially that whole well, we don't need more people here. We don't need more traffic. We don't need more this. We don't need more that. My point of view is you never stop growing. As any organization, any city, anything, it's, I believe in grow or die. You are either growing or you're shrinking. And if you're shrinking, you have different and bad problems. Growing in an intentional and an equitable way is really challenging. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I'm an economic developer, very passionate about inclusive economic development. Again, bringing everyone along the way. As you've stated before, stagnation is not good for any community, and for to have experience and live in a community where people want to be, that's a good thing. I can tell you it's not a good situation for a community where no one wants to open a business, where no one wants to purchase a home and move in. That results in negative quality of life for all. And so, again, we do have to be intentional about growth. I would say that we cannot rest on our laurels as well. Just like the fine china or the jewelry that we have in the closet, we have to polish it from time to time. And so, to sustain the Austin brand, we have to continue that as well, making sure that people know, hey, this is a great place to do business. We're going to provide great customer service. There are organizations here to support you. I've heard that theme over and over since I've been here. A number of business owners who've relocated to Austin have said, hey, it was weird for me at first when I moved here. Someone would say, what do you need? Or as I'm walking down the street, hello, goodbye. And I realized that there was true sincerity. They wanted to see me succeed. And I think that's the level of customer service that we have to bring to the table. So economic development is good. Again, I want to make sure that everyone feels like they're benefiting from the process as well. And so for us, there's not a day that passes where we're not thinking about an office building and the health of that building. How are we ensuring that additional commercial tenants move in, occupy that space? That ground floor retail space. We can have a great blend of national tenants as well as local merchants as well. And so providing the resources to help them benefit as well, I think sometimes is lost on policymakers. Having been in the trenches, I can say, it's important for us to sometimes provide support to our small businesses, to our entrepreneurs. A large scale national company is well capitalized. They may have the ability to withstand, a delay in the permitting process or extra cash on hand when they're paying their rent. A small mom and pop may not have that additional level of resources. And so I think about, okay, what can we do as Downtown Austin Alliance? What can we do working with our city partners to create some type of program to close that gap? That's true economic development. Again, bringing them along the way, helping them, achieve success as well.
Okay, so as you think about ways Austin can think differently about that, or maybe even things we can learn from other cities. I do think sometimes I'm a proud Austinite, and I think sometimes we believe if we didn't build it here and we didn't make it up here, then it must not work here. And I think maybe a blend of there are some things we get right that we think are our unique sauce, and there are some things that we can learn from somebody else. So as you think about that in particular, supporting small businesses to be able to be part of that community, is there anything specific you think we could learn from?
Yeah, I would point to one example. I think about my time in Orlando, for example. Right now, we're experiencing substantial investment in downtown on the infrastructure level. We've got Project Connect that's pending, the convention center that's under construction or under demolition, but soon under construction, and then I-35. Those are massive projects that cause disruption to businesses. And so, I had a similar experience in a community in Orlando where we were rebuilding our interstate system that had a direct impact on small businesses. And so, from the public sector side, we stepped up to say, hey, there's a real impact here to these entrepreneurs. What can we do to close the gap? And so, in some instances, we provided funding to help businesses, close the gap with respect to parking, providing parking for their customers, providing additional marketing support, raising awareness so that the community knew, hey, there might be construction, but these businesses are still open, provide support. And so those are that's an example of a lesson learned I think we can point to. Fortunately, we're part of this great ecosystem of downtown organizations. And so we love to look at best practices. And so there are a lot of ideas out there. Certainly construction mitigation is going to be something that's important to sustaining our small businesses moving forward.
Well, it's some of the ideas I've heard specifically as it relates to the convention center. I think about the bars and restaurants that I know that are right near there because that's near and dear to my heart. If dining and drinking can be a hobby, I'm all in for it. And I think about Ironworks. Ironworks Barbecue is just right there in the mix. And not only do they have the convention center, but they've got all the construction on Rainey Street. Yeah, so all the condo development and whatnot. So ultimately, that's going to be an amazing spot. But for a minute, it's going to be a tough spot to do things. And so I've heard ideas like, how can we encourage the business community to, when you got to order catering, maybe think about one of those businesses that is affected by something that long term is going to be really beneficial to our community. Near term is going to be a little bit challenging.
Absolutely. And I think, it's up to us as well to partner with those businesses to help them take advantage of new market opportunities. I heard one story of one adjacent business that's adapting their menu to support the construction construction workers so that they're offering an affordable meal to the construction workers, the hundreds to thousands of construction workers that will be out there daily. Those are the types of stories that we want to see over and over and over.
Awesome. Okay, so I threatened that we were going to come back to sociology and French as the two things that you studied. One, I find it fascinating. I know more people who have sociology degrees that work in nothing related to sociology than I can possibly count. So I'm curious, what do you take from your background in sociology that you use in your work today?
I think it's empathy and understanding someone else's perspective. I remember when I started off as an intern at the Rouse Company. Back then, the Rouse Company was a major, substantial real estate development company. They owned shopping malls, hotels, office buildings, and I showed up for my internship, and I stated that I was a sociology major. And I remember one of the executives saying, "Well, you're going to need that because there's a lot of managing people." And I found in my experiences, much of my work is really, it truly is, I wouldn't say managing people, but again, building relationships, understanding their situation, placing myself in the shoes of that small business owner, placing myself in the shoes of the office building owner that's trying to lease up, or the homeless individual that's on the street trying to find housing, trying to find support. That's what sociology has really taught me. Empathy. That's something that's very important to me. I think in our line of work, sometimes, it's easy to come back in our trenches, but if we just take a step back and just understand the other perspective. I'm proud that I've been at the table with people that I may not have agreed with, but we had mutual respect for one another. We, discussed a topic. We had an adult conversation about the situation and, developed compromise. Sometimes we didn't get everything we wanted, but we came up with a solution that benefited all and that worked best for each of us.
That is so exciting to hear because it feels like we hear that less often today than we might have at other times. And I've got two boys at home. They're 15 and almost 11, and we have most of our conversations about, well, Mama, do you agree with what that person said? And and I said, well, no, I don't agree with their point of view, but I respect how they got to it. Yeah, and it feels like if we can do a little bit more of that, and I don't know if this is particular to Austin or just, something we humans could do a lot of thinking about how did somebody arrive to their point of view, and maybe I don't agree with the end point that you got to, but if I can understand how you got there, maybe we can figure out what a common endpoint is that we can both agree with. So as you think about what you want for Austin and the lasting impact that you want to have here, I'd love to know about that. So I'm going to give you 1 second to think about it. Before I do, I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Okay.
French.
Yeah.
I threatened to come back to French. And cooking and Ina Garten. Yes. I have to imagine there's an intersection between you studied French and Ina Garten is a muse for you. Talk a little bit about that intersection.
I love cooking. I love all things French culture. Certainly French culture is known for cooking and, French breads and pastries. Ina Garten also loves Paris and loves cooking as well. And she's a muse of mine when it comes to cooking. So cooking is really important to me. I don't do enough cooking, I must say. But I love all things French culture and cuisine. And so, French and Ina Garten are two muses of mine culturally.
Outstanding. So if you had to pick only one Ina Garten recipe to make for the rest of your life, what do you think it would be?
She makes a really good lobster pasta salad.
Yes, she does. I know that recipe.
So I highly recommend it.
Okay. Her lobster mac and cheese also is delicious.
I have not tried that yet.
I mean, when other people make it, I'm not very good at executing her recipes. I'm very good at eating her recipes. They're delicious. Okay. So I promised to come back to this last question. If you want to have a lasting impact on Austin, whether someone is here for 5 minutes or 50 years, and you think about what is the lasting impact that you would like to have in your role for Austin, what do you think it would be?
I want people to feel that Austin has provided an opportunity for everyone. We're going through tremendous transformation at this moment and disruption. And it's important that when we come out on top of all of this disruption, that everyone's proud of what's been executed. From Project Connect to the Convention Center to I-35 to the transformation of East 6th Street to the transformation of Congress Avenue. I want people to say, this is an amazing place, and I want them to feel like they're missing out. Right now, I have, in my travels since I've been here, there are some groups that have left the city, some individuals that have left the city that have sort of said, oh, downtown's not the place that I remember. And I will contend that, not every downtown will stay the same. As you and I were talking about this before, sometimes there will be change. Nostalgia is really good, but sometimes we have to adapt to the market forces. And so I want this to be a place that still remains top of mind, that someone loves downtown Austin.
A downtown that we can feel proud of. And if you're not here, you're having some FOMO.
That's right. You're missing out.
I'm here for it.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.